Even though rotation back in March removed 1,000 cards from standard, there's still close to 2,000 remaining once you factor in everything from pitch black. As a result, some could definitely slip through the butt cracks when you go to build a deck. Today, I'm going to be highlighting a select few that could help improve your list, or at the very least get your juices flowing like me when I'm watching a For the Win video. First off, everyone knows how strong Badoo is as a turn 1 attacker. Not only can it item lock for 0 energy, meaning retreating into it is fairly easy, the damn thing itself has free retreat. But if you don't enjoy making other people itchy or delightfully kissing them, there's a few other Pokemon you can use as early attackers to help bail you out. If you're having trouble finding basics, try Volbeat or Chatot. The advantage of Volbeat is that Quick Sign can be used turn 1 going first, immediately benching 2 basics. Chatot can't do anything turn 1, but it gets 3 basics. Personally, I would always suggest Volbeat due to its versatility. But it's not the only Pokemon who can attack turn 1 going first. There's also this Delibird. While it doesn't help find basics, it can grab any card from deck. So if your opening hand sucks, get a Lilies. Or if you think Delibird's going to get knocked out, big brain them and grab Unfair Stamps since you don't have to reveal what you get. Delibird is immediately better than someone like Piplup who only finds a supporter. Looking at type-specific cards, for a single Lightning, Tapu Koko's Fast Flight is essentially a Carmine discarding your hand and drawing 5 cards. Lightning decks typically want energy in the discard pile, so don't forget it when building something like Mega Manetric. Moving along like the All-American rejects, your Grass deck should have Celebi. It can find Forest of Vitality along with any 2 Grass Pokemon. If you're under Badoo item lock, this is the best way to guarantee an early Meganium rather than relying on Lilies and Bug Catching set. And for Fire decks, there's Heatmore. This guy grabs 3 in any combination of Fire Pokemon and basic Fire Energy, so it can get a Mega Charizard, an Oricorio EX, and a Fire Energy helping your setup. For lesser known, lesser useful setter-uppers, there's Hitmontop, Emolga, Purloin, and Mawile. Hitmontop's self-explanatory, while the advantage of Emolga as a basic bencher is the free retreat. Mawile, meanwhile, can deal 90 damage in a metal deck, which is the perfect number for Urge Cloak. Finally, Purloin. While it can grab any 3 Darkness Pokemon, Toxel's much better for basics. Then we come to Energy Acceleration. The most common ones on the trainer side are Crispin, Glass Trumpet, and Speepyup and Wondrous Patch. On the Pokemon side, you're probably intimately familiar with Electric, Oricorio, Joltik, Smoochum, Marchaludon, and Metang. But if you don't mind waiting until Pitch Black on July 16th, there's a couple of colorless Pokemon who can help almost every deck. The reason you want to edge yourself for a month is because of Backtrack Badge. Attach it to any colorless Pokemon, now you can reflip for its attack. While it does give up 3 prizes, Mega Audino is the strongest, able to accelerate 6 basic energy from deck if you flip 3 heads. Smeargle is half as good and accelerates from the discard pile, but it only gives up 1 prize when knocked out. Also, Smeargle can KO a Badoo while Mega Audino can't. Alternatively, if you're running a deck with low counts of basics, there's Cinderace. Its ability allows you to start a copy in the active if it's in your opening hand. You do basically have to run 4 copies in your deck though, meaning the other 3 become useless if it works. But it can one-shot a Badoo, accelerate 3 energy, and retreat for free. Just be aware that this strategy is super risky. And even if you succeed, there's a good chance you mulligan several times, meaning Hand Trimmer is a funny option to screw them over. Otherwise, the new Delibird isn't terrible. It allows you to accelerate up to 3 basic energy from hand. Unfortunately, your opponent can do the same. But with most decks these days running low counts of energy used properly can give you a major advantage. To a lesser extent, we have 2 different Oricorio, one for Fire, the other for Psychic. Except Psychic already has Wondrous Patch and Smoochum. And finally, there's Morpeko and Pachirisu who are mostly relegated to accelerating lightning energy, except we already have Electric for that. Protecting your bench Pokemon has never been more important. For a single prize deck to survive in 2026, you basically need to run Battle Cage, Psyduck, Shaman, and Patrat. But only one of those, Battle Cage, protects against Dragapult's Phantom Dive pings. Except Dragapult can simply play a Stadium of their own, opening your bench up to be targeted. The easiest way to overcome this is Rabska. Kind of like a polymerization between Shaman and Battle Cage, this guy protects your bench against damage and effects of attacks. So not only are those 6 damage counters from Dragapult blocked, you're also safe from things like Greninja's Mirage Barrage. And where Shaman only protects single prizers, Rabska works on your EXs as well. Unfortunately, the fact it's an evolution that evolves from somebody with just 50 hit points holds it back. Still, if Dragapult's causing you problems, here's a solution. Also, don't forget that Psyduck evolves. It's not super helpful, but 50 extra hit points might be enough to survive an extra turn against Dragapult if you use Munkidori properly. I already know what you're thinking upon seeing this image. But Pilot, Kyarem already sees a ton of play in Slowking. Why are you including it in this masterpiece of a video? Well, my sockless subscriber, Kyurem's ability allows it to attack for a single colorless energy provided there's a Colress's tenacity in their discard pile. Several decks these days run Colress to find a stadium and energy. Stage 2 decks like Greninja want Grand Tree, Psychic decks want Telepathic plus Mystery Garden, and Fossil decks come Pitch Black want Fossil Quarry. Colress is the best way to guarantee they get what they need. While it sucks to start Kyurem, if you have Latias EX in your deck, why not chuck in a copy? If you ever pull it off, your opponent will concede immediately because they're so in awe of your greatness. At the very least, if you are a Slowking player, don't be so quick to discard Kyurem. I've been using Colress quite a bit lately in my decks, yet I haven't run into a single person who recognized the fact that Kyurem can attack for 1 of any energy infinitely. This next section will be about splashable attackers, with Moltres up first. For a single fire, this guy does 110 damage to your opponent's active EX. With Teal Mask Ogerpon remaining a top deck until rotation until early 2027, the legendary that somehow lost to Ash's Charizard despite knowing Water Pulse is an easy way to one-shot it. The same thing extends to Genesect EX. Metal play will rise with the addition of Mega Extra Drill in July, offering up another fairly easy 2 prizes. 6 or 7 weeks ago, I made a video on how to crush Crustal players. Based on player reaction, this Chi-Yu from Twilight Masquerade is the best option, able to deal 240 damage to grass and metal types if a stadium's in play. Plus, worst case scenario, its first attack is a draw 2, allowing you to potentially fish for some of your gold cards. The joke there is that Chi-Yu's a goldfish. Then there's Tapu Bulu. Both Crustal and Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon can pose major threats for grass decks. Tapu Bulu offers up a single prize basic who deals 220 damage for 4 energy. With Meganium doubling grass energy, you can easily splash it into your Hydropple or Ogerpon deck, shoring up your tougher matchups. A card everyone forgets about is Glalie. It evolves from the same Snorunt as Frostlass and Mega Frostlass, giving you a way to deal 20 damage times the number of damage counters on their active. Similarly, but not at all, if you're planning on building a deck with all 4 Greninja EX when 30th Celebration's out of September, well, that's a terrible idea. Also, there's a 60 hit point Froakie who benches 2 other Froakie. Include one of these as a break in case of emergency to potentially prevent a positively poopy start. I also want to talk about Dedenne, who was used quite heavily in Alakazam decks at the recent Turin tournament. For any energy, Electromagnetic Sonar grabs any trainer card from your discard pile. This means you can reuse Enhanced Hammer multiple times if they have Mist or Rocky Fighting Energy to block Alakazam's attack. But it can also be used in other decks to recover Unfair Stamp, which is diabolical. Or to grab a much more pedestrian Lily's Determination if you find yourself stuck like my stepmother in the banister and we need to grease her up with butter, but she kept licking it off, so we just left her there. When Pitch Black launches on July 16th, we're getting Voltaic Lightning Energy, which will slightly improve Lightning decks. I've been saying this for a couple months now, but the best Lightning card in Standard is Stunfist. It can one-shot a Badoo or trap somebody big in the active, setting them up for an extra 100 damage the following turn. If you're thinking of running Mega Magnetric at any point this year, Stunfist better be in the list. On top of that, don't be afraid to add a 1/1 Ionos Kilowattrel line. Paired with Electric, it can be a recurring way to drop to 6 cards every turn. Or how about Zeraora? Everyone has Latias or Meowth or Fezandipity on their bench. Provided you can get 3 lightning on this guy, it snipes 210 damage to any bench DX. Just don't forget that Terras like Ogerpon have a built-in bench barrier. If you're looking to boost the attack damage of your Pokemon, Superior EX is a horrible option, and if you even entertain the idea of playing it, you must have rough feet. And while Garganacl could be good in some situations, the fact we already have Premium Power Pro and Brave Bangle means it's redundant. No, I want to talk about Lilligant. This guy bumps the damage your Fire and Grass type Pokemon deal by 20, and it stacks. Since it's a Grass type, it also has access to Forest of Vitality. The reason you aren't seeing more Lilligant is a symptom of 2026 adding half the number of cards we normally see. There's just not any real good partners. I previously tried it with Moltres and Brave Bangle, which wasn't super successful. You could also try an annoying Badoo item lock deck or even put a copy or 2 in Beedrill. For now though, just hope we get something good in the 9 months before Lilligant rotates out of Standard. As much as the Pokemon Company wanted Lily's Clefairy EX to be our Dragapult counter, it has failed like your constant attempts to get me to do a foot reveal. The Dragon has a 25% meta share and shows no signs of slowing down. But what some people have discovered is that if you disrupt their energy, Dragapult might slightly struggle, which is why Crushing Hammer has started gaining more popularity recently. Adding on to that, you could try something like Paldean Tauros. For 2 colorless, it only does 30 damage, yes, but it puts 2 energy attached to their active stage 2 in their hand. While they can reattach one of those energy next turn, they'd have to rely on Crispin for another. Except if they've been overdrawing and have a 10 plus card hand, there might not be any energy left in deck. Additionally, you can try to increase their attack cost. While I've yet to face a Dragapult player who didn't immediately have a stadium counter, Nighttime Mind forces them to need a third energy to Phantom Dive if it sticks. And for even more energy disruption, Handheld Fan allows you to take an energy from Dragapult and pass it back to someone useless like Badoo. Alternatively, you can try to wall them. While you're no doubt familiar with Crustle, Milotic EX exists to block Terror specifically. Plus, it puts Dragapult to sleep with Hypno Splash. Unfortunately, Milotic only deals 160 damage, requires 3 energy, and evolves from Feebas, who only has 30 hit points. So if you go this route, Patrat to stop them from using Monkey Dory is almost a necessity. And never ever forget to run Psyduck, since Dragapult Dusknoir is the most successful deck in Japan right now. If you want to play a deck focused on Dusknoir, a stupid Psyduck on their side of the field stops that entire strategy. That is, unless you play Fluttermane. When Angry Misdreavus is in the active, your opponent's active doesn't have an ability. Boss up their Psyduck, now you can blow any Pokemon you want. It's also useful in a pinch to trap someone's Latias EX in the active, since it will no longer have free retreat. In case you were wondering, the best time to play with your balls is at night. Since we lost both Nest Ball and Great Ball to rotation earlier this year, finding Pokemon has never been more difficult. Sure, Ultra Ball is great, but multi-prize decks have begun relying on someone like Cyrano just to get set up. If you prefer taking a bit of a risk and don't fear Badoo, Dust Ball searches the bottom 7 cards of your deck, grabbing any Pokemon in there for free. Sure, there's a chance it fails, but free is free. Speaking of Badoo, Lucky Helmet is a fun way to use Itchy Pollen to your advantage. They hit into whoever has this attached, you get 2 cards. You're still item locked, which sucks harder than a Marini on a Corsolas corpse, but maybe instead of needing to use Poffin, you'll, just have the basics. It's also useful later on in the game to lessen the blow of an Unfair Stamp or Special Red card. Alakazam's been the biggest user of Lucky Helmet, but anyone can wear protection while getting beaten off. And what about ace specs? A lot of them, like Unfair Stamp and Secret Box and Heroescape and Neo Upper, see a ton of play. I can't believe I'm saying this, but Prime Catcher has now become underrated. It's guaranteed item-based gust, which can always be handy. Though, if I were to pick the best ace spec no one's using, that'd be Neutralization Zone. If you're confident your opponent's out of stadiums, plop this down. Now their EXs can't damage your single prizers. Just remember that it can't be recovered, so if you guess wrong, well, oopsie. Sticking with ace specs, there's only one way to stop an opponent from using Unfair Stamp, the most unfair card in Standard. I'm of course talking about Genesect. Slap a tool on this guy like Air Balloon or Lucky Helmet, and now you can't be stamped. Unless they watched this video and included Tool Scrapper. It also stops your opponent from attaching ace specs like Heroescape or Legacy Energy, but by far the one you're trying to prevent is Unfair Stamp. We're all familiar with how annoying Crustle can be, completely blocking all damage from EXs. But did you know there's a Sylveon with the exact same ability? Sure, it's weaker in both hit points and attack power. Wait, where was I going with this? Oh right, the only advantage it has is the lower retreat cost. So you can play it in a hit and run deck with somebody like Salazzle EX, attach an Air Balloon and annoy them further. Plus, it evolves from Eevee, meaning you can run it in an Evolution deck to try and lock them out of early attacks. Those are far from the only 2 Pokemon with some sort of immunity. If you're running a Lightning deck, there's Code Protect Miraidon. This is an effective an attack, except that attack only does 40 damage. Still, it's always protected from EX damage while it remains in the active. Obviously, a boss's orders ruins that, but it can be fun. Alternatively, what about the new Deoxys? Attacked with it, now nobody with an ability can damage it next turn. This is especially disruptive for Festival Lead. Not so much for Cornerstone Masked Ogerpon though, who goes through all effects of abilities and attacks while also having access to an ability that blocks damage from those with abilities. And if you look at some of the top decks, Dragapult doesn't really care about Deoxys blocking ability attacks, while Alakazam's attack is an effect, not damage. On the EX side, Farigiraf is immune to damage from basic EXs. A fellow Giraffe, Raging Bolt, as well as Ogerpon and Clefairy will hate this. Unfortunately, Farigiraf only does 160 damage for 3 energy, making it fairly weak elsewhere. Lightning decks, meanwhile, are about to get another boost with Pitch Black. Whereas Mega Manectric can make itself immune to basics, the new Baby Manectric does the same for evolutions. It only deals a weak 50 damage, sure, but with a Brave Bangle and Voltaic Lightning, that's up to 100 against EXs. Speaking of hating basics, there's Archaludon, Terapagos, and Dipplin. Both Dipplin and Archaludon make themselves immune to damage from every basic out there. Unfortunately, Dipplin tops out at 20 damage. Archaludon, however, can 2-shot almost every basic and should be a consideration in your Archaludon EX deck. As for Terapagos, any basic that's not colorless can't damage it after using Crown Opal. Ironically, this means another Terapagos EX can hurt it, same with Mega Kangaskhan and Blood Moon or Saluna EX. But things like Clefairy, Ogerpon, and Raging Bolt are all blocked. Finally, the card no one remembers exists, we have Acerola's Mischief. Ruining my life at least once this year, if your opponent has 2 or fewer prizes remaining, you can make one of your Pokemon immune to damage and effects of attacks from EXs. A great user is Kangaskhan since it draws 2 cards every turn. And a fun partner is Dunsparce since you can clear them off your board, leaving a lone Pokemon in play. Speaking of Dunsparce, the EX is not just a Crustle counter. It can also be used against EX-heavy decks as a way to take easy one-shots. If you're slightly mentally unstable, you've tried to make Totsadira EX work at some point. For 3 different types of energy, this guy's attack can potentially put any Pokemon directly into play, even if they're a Stage 1 or Stage 2. What you might not know is how many other cards feature a similar effect. While it is a Stage 2, the Reuniqueless from Temporal Forces searches the top 8 cards of your deck and benches any Pokemon you find there. With Academy at Night, you can even guarantee one. Best of all, there's another Reuniqueless who does more damage based on the number of evolutions you have in play. With Pitch Black, 2 more Pokemon are being added to the mix. Mega Delphox is similar to Reuniqueless, except it requires a fire energy and searches the top 9. Mega Delphox, of course, has the benefit of being paired with Baby Delphox, giving you a great backup attacker. Additionally, there's Bombardier, who's a little different. Here you have to flip 2 heads to immediately bench anyone from deck. Thanks to the new Backtrack badge, you'll have 2 chances to fail. As for Kingdra EX, it's exclusive to water types and only accelerates from the discard pile. Grimsley's move, meanwhile, is a supporter that searches the top 7 cards of your deck, placing any Dark type you find there onto your bench. The issue with this entire strategy of flashing unsuspecting people is, who are you getting? Kingdra might want Aurorus for damage reduction, but that doesn't fix the fact you aren't really attacking. Grimsley can get a Mega Gengar, but you kinda have to devote an entire strategy to it. Once we get Pitch Black though, we'll have a great target in Bastiodon. Skipping the need for fossils and Fossil Quarry, Bastiodon forces them to have at least 3 energy attached to their active, otherwise it doesn't deal damage. I erogenously mentioned in my last video that Alakazam is stopped by this, but Bastiodon only prevents damage, not effects of attacks. Still, this card's nuts. You could also try to grab someone like Emboar for your Delphox deck, or Togekiss to always fail to get an extra prize card. On the flip side, if you're looking to fill up your opponent's bench to take advantage of Frostlass or boost Clefairy's damage, there's a few options. We all know about blowing the accompanying flute, which I think I'm 1 for my last 10 on in TCG Live. That takes Pokemon from their deck. Lickitung, however, targets their hand. This can be a fun way to force a Meowth down, never letting them use its ability. Or there's Mandibuzz, who can take weak things like Badoo or Abra or Dunsparce or Dreepy they're trying to keep off the field and give you weak targets. Finally, I have to mention some disruption cards. Based on how many decks are running Hero's Cape and Legacy Energy, not enough of you are running them. Sure, you might think Jamming Tower will save you, but wouldn't it be easier to simply discard those tools? I implore you to start including Tool Scrapper in your list. That way Mega Starmie can't lord over us with its stupid 430 hit points anymore. Additionally, if your deck has fire energy, don't forget about Blowtorch. This is like if Tool Scrapper and Enhanced Hammer had a baby that we all pretend is cute to their faces, but in secret we gossip about how ugly the damn thing is. Oh, and we also have Ruffian, which kinda sucks, and Megaton Blower, which kinda blows. I know I featured more than 10 cards in this video. To make up for that, here's a list of what I think are the top 10 most underrated cards in Standard right now. I will mention that I didn't fully cover things like Hand Trimmer or other hand disruption cards, nor did I mention Cofagrigus or Ninetales because in their attempt to nerf Monkey Dory, they ended up hurting every Pokemon who moves damage counters. Additionally, those who can clear somebody off the board were ignored. Swoobat and Chimicho can remove something like a Mega Audino after it's used Kaleido Waltz, though you're probably more likely to use Transformation Tome. If there's any cards in Standard you think are underrated or underplayed, leak your sauce all over the comments.